Hello, folks, and welcome back to another episode of Reaction Bite Radio with your host, Kevin Postwaite. And
Julie Price.
we're here today with our good friend, Ed Powell, a pretty well-known fisherman in West Virginia, has won a bunch of stuff. Biggest win in West Virginia, probably the West Virginia Bass Festival. When was that, Ed? A couple years ago?
Yeah, that would have been 2 years ago, 2023, I believe.
Ed also made the state team a couple times, at least in West Virginia for West Virginia Bass Nation. Recently was in Wisconsin on the state team. So we talk about that a little bit. We'll talk about Ed's fishing career and what else Ed does for a living, because unfortunately, none of us fish for a living. We all have other jobs. But so Ed, tell us about your fishing journey a bit. How did it start to where you are now?
Like most people, mine started pretty young. I can tell you all kinds of little stories from a little kid fishing with my grandpa down at Wells Locks on the Little Kanawha River with a Zebco 33 and a fiberglass rod, catching carp and drum and whatever else would bite. One of my favorite stories that they always tell at my grandma's house is there was a little washed out hole in the creek. The creek dried up in the summertime, but there's a washed out hole below a culvert, and my uncle had gotten a scale for Christmas, which back then it was just a spring-loaded scale, and I wanted to use that scale, and he told me if I could bring a fish back out of the creek that I could use a scale. So up the road I went. I don't know how old I was, probably too young to be fishing by myself in a hole up the creek. Ended up bringing a creek chub back in a mason jar and got to use my uncle's scale. So I don't know, 4 or 5. I think there's a picture of me holding up a carp on a stringer that was, the mouth of the carp was up under my chin and the tail was on the ground. So I wasn't very old for that one either.
You've beat us so many times that when you're telling the story about the washed out hole in the creek, I literally thought you were going to say you went down there and caught a 3-pound bass out of that hole.
It wouldn't surprise me.
Over the years, I caught a lot of fish out of that hole of water, but I don't think any bass ever made it up there. That hole would dry up in the summer, and it was pretty much creek chubs and green sunfish, maybe a rock bass or two. It was, I'll say this, and I'm pretty sure it was in the middle of the winter because, like I said, my uncle had gotten that scale for Christmas, and, it must have been one of those 50-degree December days, January days, and everyone was pretty surprised. No one expected me to bring back a fish from the. Everyone just called it the big hole. I'm sure everyone grew up with a big hole somewhere in the creek, but we just called it the big hole. That kind of was one of the places that it all started. I grew up fishing ponds, creeks, river, wade fishing, did some john boat fishing, but I was probably not in a bass boat until I was in my mid-20s. Actually, a guy still fishes with us, Chris Morrison. His boat was the first bass boat that I was ever in. We took it out on the Little Kanawha and caught a few that day, but not a lot.
Do you remember what kind of bass boat it was? I bet you do.
At that time, I believe it was a Javelin. It wasn't the Renegade. I can't remember the exact model, but it was a Javelin. They had some, like most bass boats, maybe a Javelin 201 or something like that. I don't remember what size motor it was, whether it had a 150, a 250. I said that would have been around 2000, probably 2004, 2005 time frame. So, yeah, it's been a minute.
Yeah, well, it's people usually remember their first ride in a bass boat. So it's kind of funny. Maybe Julie doesn't, but the rest of us do.
I mean, I don't remember that was my first time on a bass boat.
Oh, see, I remember. I think the first time I was in a bass boat was my uncle's 1976 Ranger.
So but you also recognize people by their boats, and to me, they all look the same.
Do you recognize people by their boats?
Yes.
Sometimes
So
you
weird.
don't even know their name, right? But you know their
A lot
boat.
of times if someone asks the question, hey, do you know such and such? And it's usually, I think so. What's he drive? And I'm not talking about the truck when I say that.
Right. Yeah. What's the boat?
Kevin refers to people as the guy in the White Ranger or the guy in the Red Nitro, and I'm like, what?
Julie has a theory that all tournament fishermen look the same. For whatever reason, it's like facial blindness. Everybody looks the same.
Every boat out there looks the same. Every fisherman looks the same. I'm just,
I'm like, no. See, that's how you can never tell where the sneaky spots are if you don't know what people are driving.
That's right. I will tell you a quick story about that. Well, you know me, not very many of my stories are quick, but the first new boat that I ever got was a 2012 Stratus. It was a 18-footer, the 185 with a 150 Evinrude. And I custom picked the colors and I picked out orange and silver. And it was an absolutely beautiful. I got more compliments on that boat than any other boats that I've ever had by far. And the problem with that boat was it was at the time the only orange boat around. I think Matt Summers ended up getting one that had orange around the same time. Maybe his was before mine, maybe right after. I don't know. But the problem with an orange boat when no one else has an orange boat is you can't be sneaky in an orange boat. And I literally had a guy tell me when I had that boat that he'd went over a bridge and knew where I was going to be fishing in the tournament this coming weekend because he'd seen me going over the bridge, and I thought, no more. I've stuck to the blacks, grays, and silvers ever since.
Yeah,
Good idea.
all the regular colors.
See?
See, it doesn't matter what boat I'm in, I'm going to stand out a little bit because I'm kind of, I don't really blend in very well. Guy.
Portly.
Portly, thank you, honey. Leave it to your wife to just tell America, you know what, he's portly.
Well, if it makes you feel any better.
I know that offends you.
Well, yeah, I think everyone is offended if they're called portly that I could ever imagine.
I'm not easily offended. You can call me
offend you.
portly if you want.
Look, I mean, it's true. So, I am a portly fella, America. So
I believe it was when we were at James River, you talked about you not being able to blend in. There was a guy down there in a white and blue Ranger. Of course, we kind of, hung out, stayed together down there. And I'm running up the river and I see this, we'll say, portly fella in a white and blue Ranger fishing the bank. I literally pulled up, idled right up to him. I mean, was really close to him before he turned around and I realized that's not Kevin. And he looked at me like, Bud, what are you doing?
Why are you up on top of me?
Sorry, I thought you were someone else.
I just totally.
Yeah, the James River was fun. That's a fun place. Joey didn't get to make that trip. But
I was working.
Yeah, you were working. I'd like to go back there. I hope they have another tournament there. That was a lot of fun, and I probably wouldn't have caught any fish if it hadn't been for Ed's help with the tides, because that was my first time ever fishing tides. So it's really different, isn't it, Ed?
Yes, it was. That was my second time down there. Same time of year. We hit it just right when you and I were down there. We were a little late my first time to still caught a bunch of fish, but this time it was great. I had a feeling that I could duplicate similar to what I did the first time I was there, and it worked out pretty good. I tend to have some mechanical issues when I'm on fish. I don't know what it is about being on fish that makes my boat break, but it does. I had a good day one. I can't remember. I was top 15, I think, day one, and left my fish at like 9:30 on day one. Day two ended up slinging in the air on my prop. Luckily, my buddy Kevin bailed me out. He was fishing maybe a mile or two away, and you were able to bring me. I had a prop, and you had a prop wrench. I don't think you did not have a prop, and I didn't have a wrench. But between the two of us, we were able to get me back on the water, and still scraped up a good finish. But
yeah,
I'm impressed. Kevin had tools in his truck. That's unusual.
Well, the boat, but yeah.
Well, still,
I keep like 3 or 4 things, and that's it. But one of them came in handy, thankfully.
Hey, that's exciting.
I actually keep a pretty extensive toolkit in my boat for obvious reasons. Can't fix them all, but and I had a prop wrench in my boat. I'm not sure what happened to it. I don't know. I looked for it and it wasn't there, but luckily we were able to get back on the water. That was the day my co-angler, he caught a really nice one that would have helped me out. It was almost 5 pounds, and he ended up going to nationals, got to catch up with him a little bit up in Wisconsin when as a co-angler. But yeah, good day. Just couldn't get that one bite short of making the top 20 in that one, I think, but still good finish.
Yeah, and anybody that's never fished the James River, it's an interesting ride in the morning if you go all the way down to where we were fishing. And was it the Chickahominy?
Yeah.
That's a ride. And it's sometimes not for the faint of heart, depending on which way you go. I know there's the guys cut those corners, and I did not have the courage to do that because I was afraid I was going to have boat trouble because, knock on wood, never really had much boat trouble until I go to the big tournaments. And it's the first time I ever lost a lower unit. Lost a lower unit at Pickwick. Then went to the James River and had something broke there, and I had to get it fixed. Luckily, they had it in stock at one of the marinas. And I know Ed has notorious issues of boat problems in big tournaments.
Yeah, I kind of called that one. If you remember, we were sitting there. You guys all got mad at me because I told you at dinner the night before the actual tournament started that I just had a bad feeling that something was going to break. And
Yep, to get the call from Ed. It's like, I swung an ear. Do you happen to have a prop wrench? I was like,
Maybe you spoke it into existence.
That's what I said. You know,
Maybe.
Yeah, Ed doesn't think so. We went through this extensively in the moment.
Yeah, the other 17 times that I've broken down, I didn't speak it into existence. I thought I'd try reverse psychology this time, but it didn't work.
What? And then the final tournament was Erie and that mess, you know?
Oh, so my goodness.
The Bass Nation series this year was it was a great schedule, but man, the Erie tournament was just an absolute mess of weather problem. And I don't think I've ever seen so many boats just sitting around in literal pieces in a parking lot in my life.
Told you not to go fish that.
You did.
No, I will really not go on Lake Erie in a bass boat. Like, no. I was on Lake Erie one time. I was in a sailboat and the Coast Guard came over the radio and said there is a capsized bass boat with a man overboard. Any available vessels in the vicinity, please respond. And the next morning when we left to sail back across, the waves were so high they were hitting me in the back of the head. And I was like, never again.
I found some fish in that one that were way out. They were about 40 miles from where we blasted off. And now, mind you, it was scheduled to be a 3-day tournament. They sent us out day one. They ended up canceling day 2 and day 3. They moved day 2 to what would have been day 3. Everybody fishes day 3, no cut. They ended up canceling day 3 after we all got launched and they checked the lake and it was just too rough. But day 1, the blast off wasn't bad. There was a little breeze. It was actually the smoothest run out to my spot that I'd had all week. Made it out there in pretty good time. Made it out there in like 35 minutes on a 40-mile run, which was really good for there that week. Didn't catch them. We caught some fish. Ended up just below the cut line after day 1. And the wind was actually supposed to die down. If you check the wind apps and the weather apps, it was supposed to really die down around 2:00 and be calm. Well, that did not happen. Thunderstorm kind of hit, popped up right around noon, 1:00. I'd abandoned. I had an area that had really big fish, but there weren't very many of them. And then I had an area that had a lot of fish, but there weren't as many big ones. By 10:30, I'd lost a couple fish. I think I had one good one in the live well, and I made a run I thought 3-day tournament, I can't go back with one and, have a chance to compete. So I ran to my secondary spot. And of course, first thing I catch one, it's like 4-4. Drifted again and catch another really nice one. I thought, gosh, why did I go out there when I could have been right here wrecking them? And by the time I got there, it had picked up to where there was no fishing into the wind. You put your nose downwind, let the wind blow you, and try to pick them off what you could see. And it should have. I was a lot closer to the ramp. I was probably 15 miles from the ramp, maybe 20 where I was at there. So I'd closed about half the gap back. Normally, should be even with rough water, 45-minute run. An hour and 34 minutes later, I made it back. None of my electronics were working. My live well pumps, I'd knocked some wires loose. Had to make a fiberglass repair on the top of my boat where my trolling motor came down and smacked and knocked a hole in the gel coat and the fiberglass. So we had to patch that up and get everything fixed back up to get hope what we thought would get back out on the water, but we ended up not making it. But roughest I've ever ran pretty easily.
Yeah, ditto. I'd never been on big water like that until I was following you out really just learn how to run it because I just hadn't. And then the first day hits and it was insane with the size of it. My rub rail had to go back through and take it off and screw the screws back in the hull and just all sorts of stuff. It was just not worth it. And I was late because I'd went up to St. Clair and was late coming back. So every fish I had didn't count. So I had 0 fish.
This podcast is going to be 3 hours long. We need to get to it.
Well, we're talking fish. It's a fishing podcast.
Ed, what are you fishing this year?
So, that's a good question. I'm definitely fishing one division of the Bassmaster Opens. I just got back from Florida down at Kissimmee. I'd never been to, up until last week or 2 weeks ago, I'd never caught a bass in the state of Florida. Gosh, it was fun. Wanted to go down, look around. It actually goes off limits next week. Was the last you can be on the water, get information. So I kind of took a long weekend. I got up Wednesday morning, worked Wednesday, left after work Wednesday, headed to Florida, got there at 6 in the morning, fished all day, got back to the parking lot, thought, I probably better find a place to stay now. Found a motel that had some vacancies and it wasn't too far away and in a decent part of town. Actually, it was really nice. Everywhere I went down there was really nice, but stayed Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. My son Logan, he's actually stationed at Fort Benning, which is right on Lake Eufaula. So we ran up there. He drove down, fished with me Saturday, Sunday. We drove up there Sunday night, stayed at his place Sunday night. His Christmas leave started actually after he got off work Monday. So I kind of trolled around and looked at Eufaula a little more because that's where the second open is on Eufaula. Monday, he got off work around 2 o'clock. We took a quick nap from about 2 to 4 and then headed home 4 o'clock on Monday evening and made it back. So I got a few days fishing down there. And when you guys were getting -4-degree wind chill and 8 inches of snow, it was 81 degrees when we pulled out of the parking lot at Big Toho Marine on Sunday.
Nice.
Love fishing in Florida.
Okay, so you're doing that. What else?
I haven't really made up my mind yet. I actually, a buddy of mine, Matt Myers, just sent me Matt's very organized and likes spreadsheets and writing everything down. And he actually sent me a list of all the trails and when their tournaments were so that I didn't have to go through and look them all up and put them on my calendar.
Wow.
But I haven't decided yet. I got to see what conflicts with, again, the Opens are my number one for this year. And I do plan on pre-practicing as much as possible. I want to take a trip to Eufaula before it goes off limits, which all that'll take place in February and March. We go to Norman after that, which I can leave my driveway and be fishing in 5 hours on Lake Norman. Isn't a bad drive. I have a lot of experience on Norman. I've never fished tournaments there, but I fished on Norman a lot because it is so close and it's a good place you can go catch them in the wintertime. So, I want to go down and look around a little bit more before it goes off limits. And then we go to Buffalo, which is another, some people say it's too much driving to do a day trip or a weekend trip, but who needs sleep, right? So I probably will make a few trips up to Buffalo. I've been to Buffalo a few times. And so I may take some of these weekends that I would normally fish local stuff and go. I'm kind of committed. This may be the last run I make at these Opens. I don't know.
You're not a quitter.
I'm taking them pretty serious this year. I'm going to put in as much time as I can possibly afford to. Things are going good with the business. The kids are grown. My daughter, she just started cutting hair. If anybody needs a haircut, Hair by Lindsay. She,
Okay.
all the kids are basically gone. We have 2 grandkids. They're young, but this is kind of the time I'm still young enough that I can drive all night and get there and do things that I can see aren't the ability to do some of the things I do now aren't going to be there in 10 years. So
You must be either a lot younger than us or you just have more energy because I cannot drive all night.
Oh, have you met Ed? Ed has energy.
it's blessed me. I don't need to sleep very much. And sometimes I think I function better on about 4 hours or 9. I mean, it's,
Oh my gosh.
sleep's kind
No.
of just gets in the way of what I want to do. But that's all I know that I'm fishing. I do plan on sitting down. I've always fished. I think I fished the Bass Nation Buddy Trail. That's where I started fishing tournaments, was with the Bass Nation. We started our club. We're one of the oldest clubs in Bass Nation. the club that we started. I think there were, I don't know, less than 20, maybe even less than 15 clubs when we started. And, some of those have went away. I know we're not the oldest, but, Bass Nation is still right up there with what I want to fish. The High River Challenge stuff it's hard to find better payouts for what you put in, and it's right here.
Really like the fisheries. I like where they launch out of.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Yeah, and
The river.
after fishing not on Sutton, Summersville, Stonewall, Burnsville, and going places where you can really spread out and really pattern fish, and it's just so hard to come back and fish a 900 or a 1,500 acre lake um, when you kind of get spoiled on places that are 60,000 acres, that one lake has more water than our entire state has. So
Yeah.
it makes it tough. And again, I'm 2.5 hours from Stonewall, Summersville, a little over 2 hours to Sutton. For an extra hour and a half of drive, and I can be to a big lake. Now, the river's a little different again, because like you said, river facilities, you can lock, you can get away from people, you can kind of do your own thing. You can put, 80 boats out there and you can get away from people if you want to. So it's a little different animal than the lakes that we have in West Virginia. And again, it's too easy. I'm 35 minutes from it versus 2 hours and 35 minutes from everything else.
I definitely prefer rivers to lakes as far as fishing goes.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I like river fishing. It's just a lot of
I mean,
that's what I'm used to.
we're doing the Ohio River Trail, of course, and I think we're going to try Fishers and Men this year. And
Yeah, I thought about that one. I haven't looked at their schedule yet to see how it lines up with the opens or anything, but I like the travel. Great Outdoors had a really good, in my opinion, had a really great trail. I think it was 3 years ago, 2 years ago, where they went to Cumberland, Laurel River, South Holston, Yatesville. They had one in West Virginia, but they kind of traveled regionally, and we got to see some all new water, and it was a lot of fun. And it was all maybe one night in a hotel or, a long drive, but we got to see some new stuff. And again, we went to Cumberland, didn't have the greatest finish, but they've got that slot limit down there or not slot
Yeah.
limit, but a smallmouth has to be over 18
Yeah.
to
wow.
bring it back to the scales. And if you go out and catch 10 smallmouth bass that are over 17 and a half inches and don't have a good time, you probably ought to find something else to do. We didn't get to take any of those fish back to scales, but that's a fun day when you can catch 10 smallmouth bass that are pushing 3 pounds.
Yeah, but how disappointing.
As we get a little older, it probably would have bugged me a lot more when I was younger that I couldn't weigh them, the competitive part. But I feel like now just catching 3 pound smallmouth is fun, whether you get to weigh them or not.
Yeah, I guess. But
Yeah, we got to see, I think it was called Laurel River Reservoir, which is Corbin, Kentucky. That was a lot of fun. That was a crankbait bite. I got to fish that one with my son Logan, and he was in the front of the boat, and he was catching them so fast. Like there was a point that all I got to do was call fish and net fish for like 5 minutes. So I finally told him, I said, "You got to stop for just a minute so I can see what we're doing because I don't know how many." Like he was just reeling them in faster than I could call them.
wow. Wow.
So
A nice problem to have.
Yeah,
yes, that was a lot of fun.
I don't think I've ever experienced that.
It was a good time. Where was the other? Oh, South Holston. We hit that just right, and that's not a bad trip either. That's right outside of Bristol, Tennessee, Virginia area. If you get down there, but I guess it gets really bad with pleasure boaters after Memorial Day. But if you get down there in mid-April and throw a little, they call it the little green worm, a Zoom finesse worm, green pumpkin on an 1/8 ounce bullet weight, and it's a lot like Summersville with the ledges and the rock cliffs. The smallmouth get up there and spawn, and you can really wreck them down there. Some good ones.
Hmm.
Caught a few over 4 down there just messing around, but I think we
Wow.
had almost 15 pounds in the tournament, and we're like 4 places out of a check with 15 pounds.
Wow.
Wow.
Nice, nice. So let's see, Bass Nation Regional. You're gonna fish Cherokee?
Unfortunately, I'm really bummed because I like Cherokee, but the Eufaula Open, the last day of competition, is the day before the first day of official practice. And then the Lake Norman Open is 3 weeks later. So, although I've been blessed enough to be able to fish these opens, to take 3 out of 5 weeks off,
Yeah, that becomes difficult.
I'm not even going to try it. The schedule on the regionals just didn't. The opens match were great for me. I don't think they could have made those tournaments line up better for where I have experience aside from Florida, of course. I don't think they could have lined up any better for me with Eufaula, Norman, Buffalo spread out pretty good, and but the regionals couldn't have been much worse.
Yeah.
They've got, I think 3 of the 4 of them are in like a month and a half period, and it just makes it tough for guys who, you know,
Yeah, they're
don't
definitely
fish for
more
a living.
regional this year because of locations. It's going to be hard to travel from. I mean, what they have Cherokee, they have La Crosse is on there. Then up at what New York is it?
Champlain's on there
Champlain?
because I
Yeah.
may try to sneak up. I got to check the date on Champlain. I may try to sneak up there. I got to win some money in some of these opens to be able to afford to take any more trips than I've already got planned. But if I would happen to put it together and not break down and everything work out good for me where I can at least break even on these opens, I may try to slip up and do the Champlain one because I feel
Yeah,
like
then I think the
schedule
other
wise it will work for me.
and I think the other one is Lake of the Cherokee, Grand Lake of the Cherokees out in Oklahoma, I think. So the nation regionals are definitely regionals this year. They're
Yeah.
pretty spread out. Where last year they were closer. You had Pickwick and the James and Erie.
And I really think that's I feel like I like that format. I like that competition level. I feel like that's where I belong fishing. These opens where, I think
Well,
10 or 15 years ago, a guy with a job that is trying to go fish at that level can be more competitive. I'm going to say 80% of the guys fishing the opens right now are only fish or they're jackpotting their local lake. Just it's tough. But those regional tournaments, those are us. Those are the guys that have jobs that they're the Bass Nation guys. There's still some semi-professional guys who jump in those again, and a lot of those guys have a lot of success in them, but I think it's more 80-20 the other way where 80% of the guys in those regionals are working guys with jobs that just fish when they can and just want to get away from their home water and compete against some different people.
yeah, with the chance to still do pretty well as far as going to the nationals and a chance to go to the classic, which is pretty nice for $400 if you're a boater.
Yes.
And what, 200 if you're co-anglers.
And in all honesty, they have really good payouts for for a $400 entry fee. They pay out pretty well.
Yeah, they do. And they're fun to fish. They're well run,
Yes.
They had Julie she still has a lot of pain from.
No, I'm angry. I'm not in pain. Do not. Listen.
I was being generous.
You know what they did, Ed? Do you know what they did?
No.
They gave my championship ring to somebody else.
Yeah. That was it was an unfortunate situation that was, I don't know, could have been done differently.
There was
but
a whole bunch of unfortunate situations up there. But anyway, Kevin thinks I'm joking. I keep telling him I'm not fishing any more draw tournaments.
Yeah.
And he keeps thinking I'm like hurt or whatever. Like I'm just done with it. I don't need that in my life.
Yeah, we'll have to talk sometime because I think the listeners will have heard this story about 4 times, but about about what happened as far as your boater and all that. But she had a very poor draw on day 1. The guy had a bullet and was racing an Allison to the first spot. So if that tells you how that went, it was not good. And then he also asked her not to fish in one section. So
enough about that. I don't know. I don't know that I'm fishing Bass Nation this year.
Well, as far as
so here comes the denial.
No, I mean, you're as far as the others. You're fishing the team trail.
As long as it could not possibly end with me in a boat with somebody else.
Yeah, so team trail, you're okay because the only person you'd be in a boat with eventually would be yourself against me, right? Yeah.
Okay. I mean, that's no problem. Anyway.
Yeah. Note to self: don't teach her how to run the boat this year. right? But she can actually do it anyway.
Yeah, and I will fish the Bass Festival. That's another one that I know it
Yeah.
doesn't conflict with my open schedule, so that's one I feel like I got to jump in. And usually fish that with my son, so that's always cool too. So
Yeah, so
um,
let's talk about the Bass Festival for a second because I don't think people realize that aren't from the Mid Ohio Valley how big of a tournament that number one used to be and really is kind of becoming again. I mean, that thing just has a history, of I mean, how long they've been doing that now, Ed? Do you know?
I don't know how long, but I do know that it is the longest continuing. Probably saying this wrong.
Continuous.
Continually running bass tournament in the United States. That there's no tournaments they've had the Bass Festival every year since they started having. I don't know when that is, but there's no other tournament that has run that many years,
Yeah.
allegedly. But
Well, I
that's what
can
I've been
believe it
told.
because my dad fished that when I was a kid. That's how I first knew anything about the Bass Festival. Is it was like the biggest thing. I mean, there was a wait list a mile long to get, in, and they used to give a boat away, I think, way
Believe
back in
so.
the day.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think they did, and they would have guys. They would have a lot of big names come in
Hmm.
and even fish, from what I understand. Again, before
Yeah.
my time, but yeah, it's a pretty big deal,
Yeah.
and it still
Yeah.
is. I mean,
Mhm.
$25,000 or $20,000 for a $250 entry fee is pretty crazy. That's a really good payout for a weekend tournament. On the guys, Tony, they do a really good job running that tournament. It just is a really good tournament. COVID had kind of forced them to split up and make some adjustments to be able to have the tournament. And that's where the three ramps started. Up until COVID, everybody took off from St. Mary's, everybody
Mhm.
came back, and that limited the field because again, our facilities are what they are. Getting 120 boats parked at St. Mary's and in and out of the water is a chore. And with COVID, they set up the deal where you can take off from one of three locations. Everybody plays in at the same location, and then go from there, which has allowed them. Last year was the first year they had an open field that they didn't cut it off at 120 or 125, and I think they had 130 some boats last year, and still everything just really ran flawlessly. Great tournament, great time.
Yeah, the three ramp thing, I have mixed feelings about that. I like it on one hand, then on the other hand, I don't because you're really handicapped if you don't have someone that can bring your boat trailer back to the main ramp. So I think, it's handicapped me a couple times where I didn't have anybody to do that. And the pool above is fishing so good that, everybody pretty much knows if you can get there. I mean, the locks were messed up, was it last year, I think? And if you can get there and get back, there's a good chance that's where it's being won out of. Except when Ed won, I don't know that you went to Powhatan Point. We're not going to say necessarily where you went, but it may not have been
Unless you want to say
unless
where
you
you
want to
went.
I'm an
say
open
which pool
I'm
you're
an
in.
open book. Every partner that I've ever had gets mad at me because I don't I don't keep any secrets. We
But
actually
you did something different, which is what it takes to win that tournament, right? I mean, if you're doing something, you've got to be doing something a little bit different and have a little bit of luck,
yes.
to win something that big.
Yes, and that was, a little bit of both, probably a lot more luck. We actually took off. We were on fish in Powhatan Point with the upper pool. We were on 2 or 3 weeks before, and this is gonna be I guarantee that 75% of the people, when they hear the story about the fish we caught, 2 or 3 weeks before the Bass Festival, look at me and say, in their mind, "That guy's a liar." Because I know we caught over 80 keepers on that day. We ended up with 5 fish over 20 inches, including a 22 and 3/4 and a 22 and a quarter. That was me and Logan. That was that was daylight till dark, but just one of the best days of fishing I've ever had. The batteries went dead on my scale. We had 16 something, on my scale when the batteries went dead, and we called every fish that was in my scale after the battery went dead because we didn't have one over 20 until after the batteries went dead. So, of course, we got to go back there. And those fish, don't get me wrong, those fish had moved. It wasn't still like that. But how do you not go back there, right? And even still, we were around fish up there. So we went up, ended up catching two of the right ones. Fish with Wyatt. I was actually caught all the big ones with Logan. He was home on summer break, but he had to go back to school. Me and Wyatt go back up there. We get to our spot. I actually had one fish on a bed. We caught it. It was 1.5 pounds. Ran up to the spot where we caught the big ones, again, 2 or 3 weeks earlier. Wyatt caught two good ones up there. He caught one that was a little over 3. I think he caught one that was like 3.5 and one that was just a little over 3. And again, up until that day, it had been easy. I mean, it was easy to catch keepers. We go up there, we hang around that area, probably a little longer than we should have, but I just knew we could catch a 2-pounder just on our way back. Well, we ended up with 2 good ones, a decent one, 16-incher, and we left there at like 10:30 and headed back to the lock, hitting spots that the day before we were throwing buzzbaits with our hooks covered up when you could still practice the day before. And you just go down a rocky bank and just I mean, it was easy. So I thought, well, that gives us 3 hours to work our way back to the lock and we'll pick up a 2-pounder, whatever. We caught one more fish that day and only had 4. We had still 4 for 9 something, I think, and we're in like 4th or 5th place. So we go out to eat that night after the tournament, and it's like, how did we not catch 5? Normally we catch a lot of small limits that we're fairly consistent catching fish. It's just the big ones, and we finally get the big ones and we can't get a limit. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. So Scotty Bayless had a really big lead. He caught, I don't know, maybe 13 or 14 pounds. I mean, he had a big bag of fish. Yeah. We were top 5, but we were way behind first place. But second on down we were all right there together. So we go out to eat, and my son Logan had been home, and he had been fishing a lot more than me and Wyatt were able to because he was home on summer break. And, we're kind of game planning for tomorrow. Well, the week before, 2 weeks before, Bass Nation had a tournament out of Ravenswood, and Wyatt and Matt Myers had found some really good fish in the Belpre pool. And Logan had confirmed that some of those fish were still around along with a few other fish. And again, Josh and I did really good in that Ravenswood tournament. Kind of discussed things over at dinner and said, let's go down. Everybody's going to go up. That pool got the least amount of pressure. And I'll even go as far as to tell you that Logan had found on Monday, almost a week before the tournament, 2 really nice smallmouth that were on beds. Knew where they were at, said they were easy to catch. If they were still there, he was convinced that they would be easy to catch if we could find them and that they were still there. So, and they were both good ones. So we run down. We didn't run straight to those fish because it was a little bit windy, overcast, and I wanted to be able to see them. We hit a couple spots. So we ended up going to the first one, which he said was about 3 pounds. And we looked for this fish and looked for it. I know we're right there. I mean, it was kind of in an obvious location. Caught a couple shorts in the area, but pretty much gave up on seeing that fish after about 15 minutes. And I kid you not, I leaned over to pick up my trolling motor. When I bent over to grab my handle, that fish swam right in front of my face, right past the trolling motor. And I think it was like 3 1/4. And I saw where it swam to, and it kind of disappeared. And I'm like, I bet you that's where that fish is on a bed at. Or it may have been garden fry at this time, I don't know. But I picked a fluke up, and second cast, that thing eats that fluke. And I get it in the boat, and I hooked it in the tongue. It wasn't bleeding, but anyone who fishes knows that that's not good. So I immediately cut the line. I don't do anything. I just cut the line, put it in the live well. So I sit down to pasture eat. Wyatt drives up to the other fish, and it was right beside a dock, and it was a 2-pounder. I knew exactly where it was at. So I'm retying my bait, and while I'm retying, Wyatt pulls up, drops the trolling motor. Before I get tied on, he goes, there he is. So he sets the hook on this one, reels it halfway to the boat. It gets almost to the boat and jumps off. And it was 2-pounder. And I'm like, crap. So I drop the net, start retying again. Before I can get my bait tied on again, he goes and sets the hook and catches, I assume, the same fish. He swam right back to the bed and bit again. Now we've got, like, between the two of them, we had close to 5.5 pounds with 2. So I'm like, well, what do you want to do? I said, we want to go try to catch a limit. or do you want to go see if you can catch those? So Matt and Wyatt found those big fish that Matt and Wyatt went fishing for. Well, they couldn't get them in the boat. It wasn't that they weren't there. We've all been there where they lost them. They whatever couldn't get them in the boat. So we made that run down to where those fish were at, and we fished, I don't know, 100-yard stretch where those fish were, caught a couple shorts, and we're throwing flukes and down baits. And for whatever reason, I thought, just that voice that's in the back of your head that I don't listen to, that we don't listen to probably near as much as we should because we think we're smarter than we are. That voice says, throw a popper. So I pick up a popper, and we're almost the end of that bank that those fish were on. I pick up that popper, and like second cast, a 2-pound spot literally jumps completely out of the water when he eats it. I set the hook and get him in the boat. Now we've got 3 for 7, maybe 7.5. And it's still early. It's 9:30, 10 o'clock. And I'm doing the math in my head, and I'm like, daggone. So I throw that popper back out there on almost identical cast I just caught that 2-pound spot on, and one swirls it, and I set the hook, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that is a giant smallmouth. And I immediately start saying, please don't come off, please don't come off. So I'm fighting this thing in, it's jumping, it was big fish of the day. It was pushing 4 pounds. So we get it in the boat, and at that point, there may have been some war hoops and some hollers and the kind of stuff that happens when you catch a 4-pounder in a big tournament like that. So we get it in the boat. We still only got 4, but I looked at Wyatt and I said, Scotty better be catching them today because we got a good bag of fish now. And we still only had 4. So we fished up and down that and didn't get our 5th one there. We finally swung around and there was some wood piled up that we went and hit and ended up catching about 1.5 pound spotted bass, which would have put us up right around 10 pounds, 10.5, which again is a good bag. Up until this year on the river is a really good bag. So we run up, we fish below the locks a little bit till it's time to lock through, and we know we've got a chance. Scott had to have a bad day, but still not that bad. We go up, we lock through. I think we made just a couple short stops, and we ran back to the ramp. We had about 10 minutes before we had to check in, and we sit down right at the bottom end of the thoroughfare, and I pick up a chatterbait and start up that bank and catch a largemouth that's 2 pounds to call out that 1.25 pound, 1.5 pound spot. When I put that one in the boat, it's just, you don't know for sure, but it was just, but that fish was just like a gift. It was just one of those ones that you never catch. That was the last cast of the day. I flipped that one in the boat and put it in a live well. And you just know at that point that it worked out too good to not.
Yeah. I mean, someone told me one time that if, when it's your time, and there's really not much you can do wrong. And that's the way it has to be for those big ones,
Yes.
really. And for the listeners and watchers that don't know, 10-pound bag in West Virginia, especially on the river, is a good bag. It is not easy to do on a regular basis unless you're Ed Powell. But it's tough. Now, this year was hopefully it's not an anomaly, but it's been an anomaly as far as, some of the big bags have been weighed in.
I weighed in a 10-pound bag once.
Yeah.
One time.
Still. That's
the
a good
biggest bag in a 2-day tournament. But
yeah. In the state championships.
Anyway.
That's a good time to do it.
Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah,
but
knocked me off the state team temporarily.
Sorry, I apologize. In retrospect, I would have not done that.
Yeah, that was an awesome, and that was by yourself too. That's a little different than a team tournament. People don't realize that when you have 2 people out there that are both putting their fish in for the 5 biggest, that's not the same as one person going out and catching 10, right. 11, 12 pounds by himself. And especially
out of the back of the boat.
That was a good day.
Yeah, that's a good day under any circumstance. I mean,
yes, it is.
On the Ohio River.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So Julie has a question that she's going to ask everyone.
Everybody has to answer this that comes on the show. If you had to fish with one lure for the rest of your life, one lure, one color, that's it. It's the only bait you get from here to the end of time, what's it going to be?
The first thing that popped in my mind was a June bug TRD. I've probably caught more fish on it in the last 10 years than any other bait. If I really sit down and analyze that answer and knew I might change my mind, but that was the first thing that popped in my mind because, and here's the thing, Wisconsin, I went as a co-angler. First time I've ever fished a big tournament as a co-angler. Drew a great guy on day one. Been to the Classic twice. Actually fished with his son in a draw tournament. Had his son was my co-angler a few years back on a state team. I caught all my fish in the back of the boat, casting straight behind the boat, the June bug TRD, just dragging it behind the boat and absolutely wrecked him. And big ones. I mean, I've caught 5-pounders, largemouth, smallmouth, spots. It doesn't matter. Dumbest looking bait there is. Doesn't do anything. It just looks like a stick laying down there on the bottom. They'll eat it.
They will eat it.
They'll still eat it everywhere.
South Carolina, Santee Cooper, June bugs. June bug's a deal.
California 420.
California 420 June bug. They eat it. They eat everything, which we're getting ready to go in a couple days and stay till the new year. So leave Christmas Day, come back sometime after the new year, do some fishing in Santee Cooper. So Ed, tell us about your business because you run your own business and tell us.
Yes, sir. Started almost 8 years ago. Powell Electrical Service started while I was working another job. I did this on my days off. God was leading me in this direction. Sometimes I kind of wanted to disagree and argue with him that I've got a good job. Why would I want to leave a nice, secure job and go take that chance of start my own business? And just some things happened that here we are. And I'm glad that he did finally make me listen because it's been a real blessing. I have my son working for me. He's, the plan is for him to take this over sooner rather than later, hopefully. So that way I can fish a little bit more and not stress about it. But
and did I see that you have a website now?
Yeah. And again, that's a Wyatt thing. I'm old school. I have all my own spreadsheets and everything I want to do, but he's brought us into the 21st century with we got billing software. We've got all kinds of cool things now that it actually makes my job a lot easier. And it also makes it easier for him to do my job when I am gone for a week to Florida or Alabama or New York or wherever.
So what's your website?
So it is Powell Electric. Let's do it this way. Go to my Facebook page, Powell Electrical Service. It's got the lightning bolt. Powell Electrical Service, there's a link to my website on there because I don't want to tell you the wrong thing.
Yep, we'll put it on there for you.
Yeah.
And then all 15 of our viewers can find it. Actually it's going okay. I mean, we're getting some views and
which I told you, I don't know if you told Julie and everybody out there, I'd never even listened to a podcast until maybe a month ago. And I'd spend a lot of time on the road as I have guys who work and I just kind of bid jobs, bill for jobs, kind of put out fires. And I probably drive 60,000 miles a year. So I spend a lot of time on the road. And you can only listen to so many songs over and over again before. Well, it's like, you need to start listening to fishing podcasts. I'm like, okay. So he showed me how to do all that stuff. And so I just started listening to fishing podcasts like 2 or 3 weeks ago. And then you're like, so at least I knew what you're talking about whenever you shot me a message there.
Yeah.
We've been planning this for years. And we've talked about it and talked about it and talked about it and didn't do it. And
yeah, finally just said, no time like the present. I might as well get it done.
Kevin gets bored in the winter, and he's like, it's time.
Got to have something to do. And West Virginia needs it. We need something to, folks can listen to, get some of the latest info and, hopefully help somebody catch some fish or at least have fun anyway.
And rumor has it we might be doing a live podcast from the hunting and fishing show.
Yeah, I think we are.
Heck yeah.
We're trying to do that. So
of course, with our technical.
Yeah, you're technical gurus around here. Yeah, so whether that's going to come off or not, who knows? But we'll give it a shot anyway.
I don't know if my husband knows how to do a live podcast.
I have no idea how to do a live podcast, but I've got a few weeks to learn.
Sometimes I wish, I get myself into some real predicaments sometimes. I think we all do, but I don't know. I feel like my percentage level's a little higher for stuff that's like, man, I wish that was on video because I'd never have to work again. And I've thought about trying to do but I don't think I could do it. The cameras and the technology and.
I mean, we do it, but
we don't know what we're doing.
I know.
Trust me, we're evidence that you don't have to know what you're doing.
No.
Yeah, but
Just
you guys are way more patient and like what you saw you saw the fit up at Lake Erie. I would they don't make
so,
enough computers and
so can
cameras
I
for me to do something like this.
can I
One of us is patient. Let's
yeah can I can I talk about the fit for a second because
Sure.
it cracks me up.
Most people out there have seen them.
It I say all the time. I've never seen someone pick up their trolling motor foot pedal and just Hulk smash it on the front of their deck many times. And it was quite the sight. And then it ended up being, what was wrong with it, Ed?
So the power cables on the Garmin foot pedals, they're wireless. You can actually just put batteries in them, or you can power the foot pedal off of your battery, and it has wee little tiny like number 22 gauge wire. And I lost my connection to the foot pedal,
Yep.
and that was
Yeah.
the whole problem. I ended up putting batteries in it and it worked. But that's the other thing you didn't realize that
I see Ed put two batteries, I think, in it, and it worked. And I was like, all of this could have been fixed with two batteries. It's great. It's the greatest thing. It was
yeah.
funny.
But see,
I
that's what
enjoyed it.
people don't understand. All they see is like the fit and the last thing that happened that caused it. They don't see the other 10 things. Like when we got out there, I had a broken rod. There were like 5 or 6 things that had just happened all in a row, right along with
We had just
we
gotten
just
there.
ran for like an hour and 20 minutes through
That's-
not brutal ways, but it wasn't fun. I mean,
Right.
and then I get out there and my troll motor doesn't work. So my thinking is,
Yeah.
I've lost this whole day of practice. You know,
Yeah.
I'm going to have to, because you can't fish without a troll motor. I'm going to have to turn around, clear back, unload the boat. By the time I get the boat out and figure out what's wrong with it and fixed,
Yeah.
I should have just stayed home.
Okay,
Yeah.
so if anybody has ever seen me throw a fit, that's my story now. You didn't
To cause
to cause the
to cause
series
it to happen.
the series of unfortunate events. That's what I'm
Yeah.
going with.
Yeah,
It
that's
wasn't
a
just
good
that
one.
I immediately lost my mind.
Yeah, and at least in it rarely is. I can usually handle about 3 things at once, but it doesn't happen that way with me. It is once it starts going, it goes. And
And I
gosh,
think
I'm not proud of myself for the
the
fits that
one
I
thing
throw.
that you
Nah.
mentioned, and I think that people that are going to jump into the opens or going to jump into if they're going to fish all of the Bass Nation regionals, is you also have to have things, you have to have your equipment hold up. And that is a lot harder to do than what you think, because even brand new stuff has a way of finding a way to not hold up under those extreme conditions. And if it's going to go bad, it's going to go bad at just the wrong time, and that's usually in the middle of a big tournament or in the middle of practice. I like at Pickwick, I missed, full day of practice, and, let alone it costs you, $5,000 or $6,000 to replace a lower unit. And I've never had a lower unit go out in my life, but just driving down the middle of the lake first thing. And it's the first time I've ever had to Uber back in a bass tournament. So that's the whole thing is, have you taken an Uber in a bass tournament? Because I have, and it sucks. The whole time is just, you can just watch the money flying out of your wallet.
Well, and it's not even as people who have other jobs, time off is even more than the money. Don't get me wrong, I'm a little older now. When I was young, couldn't afford the
Right.
time off or to do it, but now I can afford to do it, but it's the time off is more expensive than the trips sometimes. And
Yeah.
it's so frustrating. You said I've lost 3 lower units. None of them have been in West Virginia. Technically, I guess I've lost 3 lower units on my boat, and actually one, we were at Hartwell, Sean Douglas and I. My lower unit went out. We pulled my boat and met his brother in Withville, swapped boats with his boat, fished out of his boat for a day, and his lower unit went out the next day. So in a matter of 3 days, we lost 2 lower units on 2
Wow.
different boats.
Yeah, that's
You
crazy.
can't make that up.
Yeah.
No.
And that's at Hartwell where you're not hitting stuff.
No, we
It's not
weren't
like-
hitting anything.
Yeah, you're
No,
just,
it was
you
just
know,
I can't remember, but like you said, it doesn't matter how new your stuff is. How I put a lot of hours on my stuff, but just got done changing the lower unit oil. I mean, it gets the maintenance. I mean, and that's another part of it that people don't understand. This, if you leave for a week-long tournament or a big tournament, it is not just go rip the face off of them and have a good
No.
time. You wake up at daylight, you fish till dark, you You do your tackle prep, you tighten up all the bolts on your trolling motor, you tighten up your back. I mean, you go through a checklist on your boat. It's not every night, every other night. There's just so many things. It's 16 hours a day while you're out of town. At least it is for me. And again, in practice, you're not catching the fish. I may spend 6 hours of 12 hours on the water idling, marking stuff. Once you figure out what you're looking for, you don't go catch them in practice. You go find more places to catch them, and you don't want to catch them because they're probably not going to bite in the tournament if you do. So then it's just the constant mental part of it that your mind never rests when you're out of town fishing these tournaments, because while you're out there, it's what's my next move? What's my next move? What am I going to do? You get back. What do I have to do to get ready for tomorrow? It's still fun, but it's fun
Yeah.
like wrestling is fun. It's not fun for everybody. It's for everybody, but
Right.
it's fun, but it's definitely not relaxing.
No,
People
it
that
wears you
don't
out.
fish tournaments have no idea why you're exhausted after a bass tournament, because I think in their mind you're sitting on the bank with a cane pole and a straw hat drinking lemonade, and it is so grueling.
Yeah, and then when you add weather into it, it gets worse.
Yeah.
Add some cold or some rain on top of just the regular,
Even the
mental
heat,
grind.
the
Yeah, and the
sun and
heat.
the heat.
Yeah, yeah,
Or
it
like
just
like we talked, 4 hours of beat beat down 4-foot waves, 15
Mhm.
miles an hour.
Yeah.
You throw that in there where yeah, it's
Yeah, no joke, my neck is still wrecked from that tournament. Like, I still have
yeah.
trouble. I've never experienced going, down to the trough of the wave and then got a 20 almost 21-foot boat and looking straight up in the air to get over the next one. That is an uneasy feeling for sure.
Yes. I've run not quite that bad, maybe a time or two close to that, but
Mhm.
you learn the hard way. We almost sunk a boat up at Lake Erie before I had much experience. Yeah,
Yeah, and the one thing I'll
seems
say is, thank goodness that I went out with you the day before, or whatever day it was that we had went out, because I would have been really, really hurting having never navigated any of that water before, because there's an art to it. You don't just get out and start running big water like that. At least you shouldn't. That's for sure.
yes.
It's can be very, very dangerous. And I was thankful that I had followed you and spent the time to learn how to do that, because that was really helpful. Just to make it in, period. Let alone safely, just to make it in, because there were some boats that didn't in that tournament.
I think that there was close to a third of the field that didn't make it back in time,
Yeah,
Wow.
and that's
yeah,
crazy.
it's really crazy. And I was one of the people. I had zeroed because I was late, and then the boat was in pretty rough shape. I mean, not enough. I didn't want to have to go back out and again. If I'd had weight, I would have done it. But so I withdrew from the tournament and went home, and then they canceled it anyway. So that was like the
Smart
best
move.
decision I ever made. Rare. I've never done that actually, as far as just withdrawing from something. But smart ended up being a good thing. And we had talked about it even before I did it. And I thought, man, you don't want
Yeah.
to do something like that, but at the same time, man, it is expensive if you don't. So
And like you said, you're already broke down. What you needed to catch to even cash a
yeah,
check was not realistic. There are places you can come back from that, but up there is not one of those places.
no, but no,
Even
that's,
if we
I
had
mean, if
gotten to
you're,
fish.
yeah, it's not a hard place to catch fish as far as that goes. It's a hard place sometimes to navigate. Well, Ed, we've been an hour, so we should end. It's been great talking to you, and I sure do appreciate you coming on the podcast. And is
Yes,
there
sir.
anything you got going on that you want to talk about before we go off?
Not that I can think of. I appreciate you guys having me on. Always a good time. It seems like whenever we do talk on the phone or get together, an hour goes by pretty fast. But
Oh no, it
uh,
does. It
Yeah.
does for me.
And
I
I mean,
always enjoy talking with you guys.
you've beat us a lot, Ed.
Ed's been
Always right there,
the
right there in front of us.
the thing that was exciting is there was a couple years there where we were 1-2 going into the final championship of the Ohio River Challenge, and Ed got us both times.
Oh, yeah, I mean
but it was,
we've been
it
weighed,
was
we've
close.
been measured, we've been found lacking.
I don't know if I've ever told you this or not. I probably have, but this would be another good one. And just tell me to shut up if you don't want to hear it. But so the second year that we won the points, and I think you guys finished second that. I know you were second going into the final, and I think you finished second that year. So the last tournament was out of Ravenswood, and we locked down to Gallipolis, or the next pool down, and we locked back up with like 2 little fish. I knew we blew it. I mean, you just can't do that. Well, we locked up, and I didn't have anything in the lower end of that pool that I felt comfortable that I could go catch what we needed. But I had a spot clear up by the dam that we probably should have went to begin with, but we didn't. So we ran all the way from Racine clear to Belleville, and we get to the spot that I wanted to fish, and there was a boat sitting on it. And I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. So we turn and start back down the river, and by this time, we've only got like 15 minutes of fishing left before we have to leave and head back to weigh in. So I pull off on another bank, a little offshore spot that late in the day I feel like hasn't had a bunch of pressure. And we start fishing up this spot. We're running out of time. And all of a sudden I get a bite, and I set the hook, and I'm like, my goodness, if this is a bass. Ended up catching it. It was big fish for the tournament. When I subtracted that weight of that fish off of our bag, you guys would have beat us by 1 point had I not caught that fish.
I mean,
And
that's the story of our life.
It is, but
it was literally last cast, we made it back with, it wasn't like we came drifting in as time was running out, but when I caught that fish, I looked at Wyatt, and I said, let's go. Let's get out of here. So that
you're just
might
rubbing
be
salt in the wound.
But that's fishing, though.
I have a good Ed story, and I don't know if you even remember this.
Go ahead.
Eufaula.
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 Yeah,
I was watching the weigh-in, and Ed goes up there. You weigh your fish in, and you're on the stage, and you said, I just couldn't get the smallmouth to bite today. And nobody got it.
Nobody got it.
No,
I'm glad you got it, Julie.
I laughed.
Yeah, she's rolling laughing.
She should have seen this. And I told him, I was like, he made a joke, but like they thought he was being serious. And
yeah, because there's no smallmouth in. Yeah, for people who don't know, Eufaula has there are spotted bass and largemouth. There are no smallmouth on Eufaula.
Yeah, so Ed's like, I just couldn't get the smallmouth to bite today, and they're just looking at him like he is the dumbest human being on the face of the planet. Like it went over their head completely. Like
really did.
I thought it was funny. Like I thought it was a good
appreciate that because I was really disappointed that nobody laughed.
I laughed. I laughed.
Yeah, Julie definitely laughed.
Yeah, I was like, that was great.
As a matter of fact, it's one of the things that she talked, like every once in a while, she'd be like, well, there's no smallmouth in this lake. She just says it just out of the blue.
That was another one of those tournaments. I was right there at the end of day one, and I actually didn't break down. I never really figured him out there. I did catch one giant in practice, but I never really figured him out. And into day one, I was right at the cut line for a check, not too far out of the top 20, and had the fish on. Ended up just putting a jig in my hand and flipping down the banks, looking for a big one, and had him on. But that's fishing. Ended up, I think, dropping down into the 60s, but yeah, fun time, man.
Yeah, that's a lake that I want to go back to because
every time I go anywhere, I just suddenly forget how to fish. Like I've never held a fishing pole before.
Well, it was tough that time. I mean, people struggled. I think I blanked the first day, but I caught a good bag the second day, and
I caught a fish.
Almost got a check.
The first day we got down there for practice, as soon as we put the boat in the water, I caught one. Didn't catch another fish for the rest of the trip.
I caught my third biggest all time. I caught a 712 there in practice.
Wow. I think I remember that story.
So that's where Logan's at now, right?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, he fishes. He's living the good life. He's roomed with a couple guys, and every weekend he's Saturday, Sunday, Friday evening. If he gets off work early, he's on the water. He's actually fishes against Kyle Welcher quite a bit.
Yeah, that's nice. They for anybody that's watching that doesn't know or can see, Ed's wearing a West Point sweater because Logan graduated from West Point. So he's one of the West Virginians we're very, very proud of to get into West Point, graduate, and now he's living all of our dreams and fishing at Eufaula while he works in
Listen,
Alabama.
I'm
for
not a
little
huge
bit.
fan of Eufaula. That is not my dream.
It's a good lake.
Well, it wasn't good to
Yeah.
me.
We'll be
Yeah,
there next
he's
time.
gotten to fish Eufaula. West Point is about the same distance. He's right between West Point. West Point's got a ton of spotted bass, big spotted bass. Then he's made a couple trips over to Lanier, also known for big spots. He's caught some 3+s over there at Lanier, spotted bass.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He just calls you to tell you about all the big fish he's been catching.
Yes, he does. He rubs it in.
Well, it's your kids, so they can't really rub it in because you're happy for them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You obviously don't quite understand me and Logan's relationship if you think I'm happy for him.
Okay, yes, I'm sorry. Maybe it's a mother thing.
Yeah. No, I am, but we are very, very competitive. So, yeah, we give each other a lot of crap. He's a good fisherman. Both the boys, Watts,
Yeah.
Yeah, they are.
both my boys are and I'm proud of them. It would be easy for them to just go do what I do, but they don't want to do that. Wyatt especially, sometimes he won't do what he should be doing just because he knows that's what I'm doing. He wants to go do his own thing and figure it out himself. And you know, they've both been like that all along, that they don't want to be like Dad. They want to be better than Dad.
That's what you always want for your children.
He does
Yeah.
not want that.
Well, secretly he does. So, well, Ed, thanks a bunch for joining us. It's been great talking to you as always. And we look forward to either whooping up on you or getting whooped by you.